curves, if you go to create, these are all your curves here, and you could try all of them. I like the CV curve tool, but there's a pencil curve, you could just draw freehand, there's all these kind of other types of arcs. And if you click on the little box next to it, it gives you this option. So one is straight lines, so if you want to make a curve based out of straight lines versus one that's made out of cubic or is curved. So I would just stay with either 1 or 3. You don't really need to worry about the other one. So we'll do a curved one. And then if I go into, let's see, my side view or front view, whatever this is. Where's my grid so massive? If I just start clicking on the screen, you can see how my curve starts to form. Now I could also make it snap to grid if I want. If I click on that, snap to grid, so it will snap to the grid. Now if I want to close my curve, then I want to snap to point. So I would click on that, snap to point, and then I would go and I would click on the first one that I started with, and then it will close that curve. And then I can see here in my outliner, there's my first curve. Okay, so if we look at it then in the perspective view, there it is. Okay. I'm going to go and make another one, same view. I want to unselect that, because otherwise if that's still selected, every single point will snap on top of it. So I want to make sure that's unselected and just make some other random shape. And close this one as well. You don't have to close it, but I'm just closing it. And they're always right on top of each other. They're always right directly in the middle of the axis. So I'm going to separate them. So I'm going to make sure the second curve is picked. I'm going to take the move tool. I'm going to unselect the snap to point, and I'm just going to move it along the axis so they have some gap in between them. And then it's very important that if you have multiple curves, you select them consecutively. Meaning, right now I only have 2 curves, but if, say, I had Control D is duplicate, I'm just going to make another one. Control D. Or you could go to Edit, Duplicate, I think. Is it an Edit? Yeah, Duplicate. D. So, for instance, if I select them in order, so I go 1, this one, Shift, that one, and then that one, that's consecutive. If I go like this, and I go that one and that one, that's not consecutive. And what that does is that if I'm going to create a skin in between them, a loft, it will follow the direction that I picked them in. So I'll show you the difference. I'm going to pick consecutively first. And this is your loft tool, this thing that looks like a tube. If you put your mouse on it, it says loft. So I hit that, and basically what it does is it negotiates between the curves, and it creates a surface, right? It blends them all together, right? Now if I go this one, and this one, it twisted on itself, right? You see it looks really weird because it actually jumped, went from first to last to the middle, right? So you want to make sure that unless you want this to do this, that you're picking them in order. So again, that's in order, that's not in order. So there's our loft. Now the loft, like the primitive tool, can be manipulated the same way. And once it's in this form, I could actually make some decisions. You know what, I don't like this curvature, so I could still pick a curve, one of the 2 curves, and change it, and the skin will go with it, right? So I could do things like this. I'm just scaling it. You know, so I actually wanted to do that. You know, I really want this to be longer, so I could pull on it. Oh, I really want it to rotate. I don't want it to be like that, right? So I could still do things like that. I could totally twist it on itself. I could also operate on the curve at the point mode, right? So I could hit F8, and if I want something more local, right? And it'll affect the whole surface, right? So what's nice is that really just through these 3, there's so many manipulating tools and deformation tools that are so complex, but just these 3 alone, and with the points, you could really do anything. And this is probably like 1% of this program, or not even. Right? So I could work at the level of the curve, or I could select the surface itself and do the same thing. You know, start operating just on the surface at local moments. And then I could even rebuild this surface. So if I want more points, I go to the same process. I go to Edit Nerves, Rebuild Surfaces, and create rebuild, and then I have this level of intensity, right? So then when I go in and I hit the F8, I could do things that are more specific. You can see how one could really design this way, you know.
Can you make the surface bigger, like the proposal surface?
You can't as a NURB, but you can, I gave it udders. You can if you turn it into a polygon. So the NURB itself is always a skinny surface. So you could cheat a little bit by creating an edge, beveling the edge, but not as a NURB. So for instance, if I did want this to be a thick surface, I would go to Modify, Convert, NURB to Polygon. I would click on that, and I would decide if I wanted to be quads or triangles as a polygon, meaning that it's made out of a series of, you know, triangulated elements or squares. I'll leave it on quads. I say tessellate. So now there's actually two of them. So the top one is a polygon, and I could extrude the polygon. I would change this to polygons. I think this is the extrude. I'm thickening it in a weird way. That one is, so I've thickened that surface. See? The nice thing that's different about polygons, the way you operate on a polygon, is you actually operate on the surfaces themselves. So for instance, I could, if I right mouse click on this, look, I'm holding the right mouse button down, I could say vertex is the line, but I'm going to say face. So I could actually start to operate specifically on the faces. It's very different than the, I could delete faces, I could start making holes in it.
So, if I do something from the nerves, I can delete suffix, right?
It's all continuous. We could make holes in it. You could project a shape on it and make a hole.
Oh,
right? The nerve, as you can see, is smoother and more flexible. So I would say you could probably do, you know, you work in both. You work originally in the nerve, and then at some point you convert to a polygon, and then you work in the polygon. Right? And it also has, so these are the, it has the points as well, like the other one. You see it's all faceted. And it has the, edge. So I can operate on a specific edge as well. Oops, that's not. So that's the loft. Do I delete? Why not?